We're live.
I always remember when I did not understand how I used to stand under all the fool's rules running these lands. I always remember, and I was asleep. Now I learn a little more every day, and I'm waking the sheep. Gonna say it out loud, say it proud, get it out, 'cause I'm burning inside, cannot hide it no more. I'm a raconteur too. Yeah, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. All the people in the chat room singing. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. One more time now. Oh, I'm a raconteur too.
And good evening, welcome to Raconteurs News, Raconteurs 2 we call it. Used to call it on Monday when Ada did it, but that's what we're on tonight anyway. Good evening, hope you've had a good weekend and a good break and you're all refreshed and ready for what madness this new week's going to bring. It's the 1st of April 2019. You might be every single day you might be forgiven for thinking that it's the 1st of April, but obviously it's just a crazy mad world that we're living in. Anyway, it's been a good weekend, a good football results, nice one. Super Leeds on your teams, to your team winning. I actually drove right past Bramall Lane on Saturday while the game was being played, while the Sheffield United game was being played, and I put a curse on them. And when I got home, I thought, oh, bugger, because they were winning 2-1. And then they ended up losing 3-2. So my curse worked. And so you can thank me and pay me for that a little bit later on, Super Leeds. Anyway, as usual, I'm joined by my esteemed co-host from Six Fingered Land, from over there in Lancashire, Paul Webster. Good evening, Paul. How you doing, mate?
Evening, Jason. I'm good, thanks. Knackered. I'm hang on, I'm lost on my days. Day 5 of 7 at work, so I'm feeling it at the minute.
Yeah, well, like I said, apologies to everybody who have been hanging on. We had a couple of technical issues concerning technical stuff, really, if you want to get technical about it, with our guests. So that's why we're just a few minutes late. But I'm really excited about tonight. There's one or two things that I want to ask tonight's guest. But Webby, you're the guy that set this the guest up for this evening. So why don't you give him an introduction?
Well, I think for most of the listeners, Vinny won't need much of an introduction because, as I've always said, must be about 7-8 years ago, Vinny was the first platform that I was able to get on, and he gave me a platform that I took a lot of ridicule over for the simple reason that I had the understanding that Vinny's show was just radio because he only sent me the MP3s. So I was quite happy with that, and I was posting the MP3s until somebody at work went, "Webby, you're on YouTube." I said, "Am I?" He said, "Yeah, this Vinny Eastwood show." I went, "Oh, I didn't know it was on YouTube." He said, "Yeah." He said, "It was really funny." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I was interested what you were talking about." He said, "But I found it hilarious that you were sat there in your Family Guy pajamas scratching your balls while you were doing it." I went, "Nice." So that was my introduction. But as again, Vinny Eastwood is now, he's proven himself to be that independent journalist that he always said that he wanted to be, what he was striving to be. And now, obviously, there's been one or two things that have happened down in his neck of the woods. So I thought it would be, only wise enough to bring somebody who's got boots on the ground rather than try and sift through the mainstream bullshit and get a bit of reaction from boots on the ground. Like I said, Vinny's actually gone to Christchurch, so I'm looking forward to hearing what Vinny's got to say as well. If you can unmute his mic, without further ado, Vinny Eastwood.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good stuff, Jim.
Yeah, well, I just want to remind people just before we begin that this is live streaming on my backup channel. The reason why it's on my backup channel is because my primary channel has been restricted, so I cannot live stream, I cannot upload, and I cannot tell my listeners about it either. So if you can, ladies and gentlemen, please tell as many people as you know that my main channel has been restricted, and to tell them to go to the backup channel, which is youtube.com/C/Vinny Eastwood. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. Now, the reason for the restrictions of my channel is, of course, the Christchurch Mosque massacre, specifically one subject, the words false flag. All right, if you, ladies and gentlemen, every single video that I have put up about this incident with the words false flag has been taken down. All right. And if it hasn't been taken down, it's resulted in a flag on the channel. And if it hasn't been taken down or resulted as a flag in the channel, it's been completely demonetized and been threatened with being flagged again. So if I get one more flag, I lose that 40,000 subscribers. I lose the 5,000 videos. I lose 10 years of my life. So please, ladies and gentlemen, go to the new backup channel if you can, because I could get a couple of strikes on this one and I might be okay. If I'm lucky, because I've gone from 40,000 subscribers back down to 4,000 subscribers. So right in the peak when all of this is kicking off, I've basically had my knees cut off and I cannot do shit by comparison to what I was able to do. I had like maybe 700 people watching at the regular streams. Now I've got maybe half a dozen, that kind of thing. So
did that start?
It's really frustrating. Pardon?
Sorry for interrupting. Did that start with the Ollie Demigard interview when you were live? Did it start there?
That was the very first time we got censored in real time. Yeah. Ollie's been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing it for over 10 years. Neither of us had ever seen anybody get censored in real time, ever. So this is a real problematic thing, because I'm doing what the job of journalism is. You talk to people about what they think, about what they've got evidence about, you relay it to the audience, and then you keep talking to people about what they think and what evidence they've got, and you continue to talk to the audience. YouTube is now saying you can talk to anybody you want, just so long as they don't say anything along this huge list of lines of stuff that we deem too offensive. And if you do start talking to people that we don't find offensive, you know, and that kind of thing, like if you go down to Christchurch and, you know, let me just back up a bit because I'm a little bit tired. It's very.
I'll tell you what, Vinny. I'll tell you what, Vin. Let's start from after what happened after the Ollie Demigard, because obviously you had information come in quite quickly at you, and as you was trying to get through it in real time. So let's start from there, Vin. When you first heard about it, what information was coming, and then how did it progress from there?
Well, we had umpteen different red flags of government involvement. There were drills on the day. There was a Crisis X conference, which was $2,000 a ticket, with 120 international terrorism expert coordinator delegates that were
convenient.
2 weeks beforehand. And Crisis X, guess what their speciality is? Terrorism simulation. They own lots of dummies with blood packs, and they're filled with juice and stuff like that, so that when you shoot them, it'll appear to be real blood coming out of the bodies. They hire amputees, they hire actors, they have blank shot rounds, and all of these other sort of things, so that you could do what would be a mock terrorist incident for training purposes. Now, the week leading up to that was 2 weeks before the shooting happened, and on the week of the shooting, the Armed Offenders Squad, the New Zealand equivalent of the SWAT team, were in Christchurch performing operations all week. On the day of the shooting itself, Special Air Services, the Delta Force of New Zealand, were also having a sniper drill around about the same area at exactly the same time, as were the Armed Offenders Squad. Now, directly after that, within minutes, the Prime Minister said, "Oh my God, we have to change our gun laws." Just within minutes, right? And
I realised it was
6
10 days, wasn't it? 10 days from writing the legislation and passing it. That was amazing.
Well, they writ the legislation in seconds. Now, I don't know how many people can type really, really fast, but 600 pages of documents, that kind of thing, you can't write that immediately. So what they've done essentially is they've taken their agendas from 2018, which is late 2018, where they wanted to arm police more, they wanted to disarm the public more, and they wanted to have armed guards of members of parliament. So at the time there in late 2018, we had the Prime Minister's mansion upgrade, approximately $5 million security upgrade. We had somebody pop out of the bushes and punch James Shaw, he's the leader of the Green Party, in the face, which led to calls for armed escorts for all members of Parliament. And then a unsuccessful gun law was introduced to take guns off the public and give weapons to all of the cops. And after this has happened, we are now having dawn raids and 2 o'clock in the morning raids on New Zealand gun owners who've broken no law, who have never even mentioned any of their political affiliations to anyone, and that kind of thing. And the cops are showing up at 2 o'clock in the morning and asking them to open their safes and give up their weapons. So the gun confiscation started happening almost immediately. And they as was the gun ban rhetoric was immediate, and the gun confiscations started immediately after that, even before the legislation was passed, and it was passed under urgency. So what urgency means is we make up something and we say this is an emergency thing or whatever, and we need to pass this immediately. But don't we live in a democracy where everybody gets to say, no, it's an emergency, we're just going to pass it, and that's how it works. It's not entirely dissimilar from how MFAT works. Now, MFAT is the people who are responsible for checking over all the cargo and imports into New Zealand and scanning all the ships and things like that to make sure people aren't bringing in weapons and drugs. Now, what's happened is, and it's come to light recently, that what MFAT was doing is they were actually working possibly with the gangs, possibly they were working with the New Zealand organized crime in every port in New Zealand. All right. Now, this is how they operated in their official capacity. Hey, official port workers. Yeah. You see that incredibly suspicious looking ship over there that's probably full of illegal arms from some dodgy country? Yeah. Well, it's illegal for you to scan that one. Really? Yeah. And you see that empty ship over there that's got nothing in it? Yeah. Go scan that one instead. That's how New Zealand's security import-export business works here, which means you can get anything into this country so long as you have organised crime connections and or government approval. So,
well, that is the organised crime, isn't it? Government-approved organised crime. That's the best place to be in.
Well, a child was sitting on his dad's knee one time, and he says, "Daddy, I want to go into organised crime." And the daddy goes, "Government or private sector?" Yeah. So what we're talking about here is essentially from day one, this is how I called it. It's whether or not it's real or manufactured, this incident. We've been down to Christchurch. Real people did die. We've got interviews with the eyewitnesses. We've got interviews with survivors. We've got interviews with locals. We've got interviews with the president of the mosque that I'm trying to work on because I got locked out of my phone for no reason whatsoever. So I was unable to live stream on the second day, which is really frustrating. And it's permanently locked. So I'm going to lose all the footage off of that. It has to be completely reset. I've lost everything. From when I went down there. The only thing that is left are the videos on my channel that I managed to upload on the first day down there.
It's interesting. It's interesting, Vinny, you brought up the president of the mosque, because I'm sure I read an article where that guy had stated that this was Mossad-led, he believed. I don't know if you've come across these articles.
Don't have that information. But we he did talk to us about the lone gunman thing and how he doesn't think that that's the case, and indeed some of the eyewitnesses from the Linwood Mosque. So we've interviewed people from both mosques that were attacked, and both of them don't believe that it was a lone gunman, namely because the locals know how long it takes to drive from one to the other. Even if you're driving as fast as you can, you couldn't get there in that time frame. And also the amount of people killed, they're incredibly suspicious. How could one gunman have such a high body count? You know, that kind of thing. Now, at the moment, there's a rumor being spread by veterans today and Jim Fetzer that the shooting video was fake. Now, we've been to the mosque and all of the carpet has been replaced. Every single square inch of wall has been filled in. Every lick of paint has been retouched. So they have literally covered up all the physical evidence. Okay, there is no more physical evidence at that first mosque. Now, I'm not sure how the New Zealand police conducted their investigations, but I'm of two minds about this. Number one, it's a place of worship. People and a place of mourning. At this particular moment in time, there are piles of flowers up to the knee, covering the entire sidewalk out of there, and that's only on one side of the road outside of the mosque. On the other side of the road, there are piles up to the knee of flowers around trees as far as the eye can see, with little people have gotten these little pieces of paper, right, that have a message written on them, and they're linked with another piece of paper, and there are like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these just linked in a chain all along the parkway there. So the amount of support that has come out from the community as a result of this crisis is absolutely extraordinary. And when you're interviewing these people who have seen it or know somebody who's died, you can feel palpable emotion coming off of them, bro. Like I was crying in the airport because of how painful it was to actually hear these people's story of loss and fear and confusion. And the other element of this that I thought was particularly important is to let people know, specifically in the alternative media, that this is a very dangerous time if you want to tell the truth about anything. Okay? But at the same time, you've got to have a little bit of, I don't know, you've got to have boots on the ground, more or less. And I'm on the ground here. I'm the only person in the alternative media in the world who actually bothered to go down there.
Vinny,
You know?
could I ask you a question? Something I don't know whether this would have. You said that you interviewed and you spoke to somebody, the president of the mosque, I believe. Now, something that struck me. I mean, there were men and women who were killed in this incident. Now, did he mention whether it was normal for men and women to pray together in the same room? Because many mosques won't have women into prayer.
There were approximately 10 rooms of the mosque. I did a walkthrough. So what I did is I went through the front doors and I looked in the other thing, and I filmed the whole thing. So I'll be uploading that walkthrough soon. So anybody unfamiliar with the complete layout of the mosque, I actually go through with a camera into every single room and have a look around and that sort of thing. So what you get the impression of in there is that there are so many separate rooms that are really large and can have plenty of people in there, that kind of thing. So if the men were praying in a different room to the women, the gunman on the video, he goes through all of those rooms and opens fire into them. So whether or not they were praying together or separate is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, it was just something that I wondered about, and there were another thing as well. I've seen the video that's banned that nobody can watch. I've got a copy of it. If that gets me into bother, it gets me into trouble. I don't care really. But I just wondered, because that was supposed to have been live streamed on Facebook. So, is there a copy of it with the? Because when you're live streaming something on Facebook, people can comment, people make comments and do things. I just wondered if there was any copy of the video with the actual Facebook live stream with the comments on and what people were actually saying and stuff. Have you any ideas on that?
No idea whatsoever.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
So, okay. So here's the thing. Number one, if I were to theoretically say that I don't think the video is real, I can go to jail for up to 10 to 14 years. Okay. That's New Zealand law.
Right.
If I watch the video, I could go to jail for up to 10 to 14 years. If I share the video with somebody, I could go to jail up for 10 to 14 years. If I discuss the video in a way that's anything other than negative, I could go to jail for up to 10 to 14 years. If I do any of those things whatsoever that I just mentioned, I can lose my YouTube channel. This is unfucking precedented censorship of the highest order. I have never seen anything like it, and I am absolutely terrified. Now, you know, my channel disappears and stuff like that. That's 10 years of solid New Zealand history. This is interviews with activists of all shapes and sizes and varieties about every subject that you can think of in New Zealand. Gone. That's what'll happen. And that is my punishment for trying to find out the truth about this incident. All right? And listening to what people's alternative theories are. That is illegal to do now. It is illegal to discuss things. It is illegal to have thoughts. It is illegal to look at evidence. It is illegal to have theories. I could go to jail for up to 10 years for so much as having a thought.
It was interesting, Vinny. We had Dave Von Kleist on a couple of times, and obviously Dave did a few 9/11 documentaries. And he said the reason that people didn't get to him was he never came up with a theory about this, that, or the other. It was question, 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 and they didn't seem to know what to do with him, because at the end of the day, we see what they're doing is they're passing legislation over in your place because they can. And the fact is, I couldn't understand how all of a sudden all the women are wearing hijabs. You've got Muslim women saying, please stop doing that. Please stop doing that. That doesn't make any sense to us whatsoever. And it didn't make sense to me. But when they're passing legislation to say, you can't, don't question this, you can't do that, that makes me more suspicious. And I think because Max Egan was touched on about the work that you were doing as well. And he said, Vinny's there, he's boots on the ground type thing. But he was saying stuff about the laws that are being passed. If this is true, if all of what is being said true, there is no reason to hide anything, and to make it against the law makes it even worse. And one thing he said that rang true was, if you say to somebody, don't look at this, what's the first thing that they want to do? They want to look.
I want to explain that. It's called the Streisand effect. Now, the reason it's called the Streisand effect is because back in the day, I think this was in the mid-90s or late 80s. I forget exactly when it was, but the story remains the same. A helicopter was hovering over a house, taking pictures, and then they published the pictures in a magazine. Streisand then sued that magazine and said, no, you can't take pictures of my house. The next day, there were 5 helicopters over her house taking pictures. Okay, what is she trying to hide? So my theory immediately when the video came out, when they banned it, is same with the mosque. I'm on two minds about it. Number one, you need to be able to have that thing in the public domain so that every journalist can analyze it. Every person who has filmmaking skill can analyze it. Everybody who knows how to live stream can analyze it. You know, that kind of thing. The more thoughts and the more analysis that we have on something that happens as part of the fabric of reality, the better. But that's illegal and you can go to jail. And Max Egan, he's in Australia, and I'm not sure if he's at risk because he's watched the video. He's breaking it down because, well, basically, I'll just say the things. Me and Max versus Kurt Richard Haskell and Jim Fetzer. Now, I know Kurt and I know Jim, and I respect their work and all of that kind of thing, but I believe they're way off base on this one, and they're going to cause a hell of a lot of re-traumatization for the victims. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So Kurt comes out with an article saying why I think the video is a hoax and no one died. And Jim Fetzer comes out with a very similar article on Veterans Today. And so now the entire internet is full of people, chat rooms are full of people who think that all the victims that I interviewed myself when I went down there are all crisis actors. Okay, that all of the people who died and all the funerals and everything like that were completely staged and completely fake. So essentially, whether or not these guys know it, they're spreading disinformation and they're helping the Central Intelligence Agency to promote confusion. Now, when I say the Central Intelligence Agency to promote confusion, does that mean I think there's CIA involvement? I don't know. What I'm saying is, when the CIA was originally created, its job was to create confusion among the enemy. And now the enemy is not a foreign country. The enemy is us, the public. The enemy is consciousness. If we're capable of figuring things out, then we become more dangerous to a corrupt establishment. But if we are so confused and don't even know reality from fiction, then we're in trouble. Now, so Max Egan's worked on like Dark City, Pitch Black, and a number of other reasonably big film projects doing visual effects and things of that nature. And he's gone through frame by frame. I believe there was something like 36,000 frames in the 17-minute video, and he's been through all of them, noticed a number of anomalies, and these are all things that he's told me I can't watch his video analyzing the evidence because I'll go to fucking jail, right? I mean, I can't even show the video to people on my channel showing that it's real and that real people died to counter the fake alternative media narrative because I'll go to jail. I've had the cops visit my home 4 times in 4 days, ladies and gentlemen. 4 times in 4 days. Knock, 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 knock. Scaring the shit out of me. I'm absolutely terrified of losing my channel. I'm terrified of going to jail, and I have shot nobody. I have done nothing wrong to anyone. I've made no accusations. I've made no assertions of any kind whatsoever. I am the only person in New Zealand who is covering all angles of this, and they fucking censored me.
That's why you're devastating to the case, Vinny. You're devastating to the scenario and the narrative.
Yeah. Well, again, I just want to reiterate to everybody in the chat room or watching this video right now, please, right now, share this link out and tell people to subscribe to this new channel and click the little bell, because, I've gone from 40,000 subscribers to 4,000 subscribers because they've censored my main channel. I cannot upload, I cannot live stream for at least 3 months. 3 months. All right, because I told the truth, because I interviewed people who had theories about it, who weren't coming down too hard one side or the other or whatever. We can't even have discussions like adults on YouTube anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to back that up with this screenshot that I took yesterday that I posted on my Facebook page. Here we go. Limited features on certain videos. Let me see if I can suss this out one here. Oh, no, I've completely screwed it up. Bloody hell. Okay, one second, folks. All right, there we go. Limited features for certain videos. Hate speech is not allowed on YouTube. So if you hate anything, if you hate... If you hate like electronic pets or something like that, your hate is not allowed. We remove content promoting violence or hatred against individuals or groups based on certain attributes. So basically, if you hate anyone or want to commit violence against anyone for any reason, okay, that's illegal. Now, it's illegal to hate. They're outlawing a spectrum of human emotion here. YouTube doesn't allow content intended to praise, promote, or aid violent criminal organizations. Now, why is the mainstream media still allowed to use YouTube then? Okay, because that's the only thing they do. Content that doesn't violate our policies but is close to the removal line and could be offensive to some viewers may have some features disabled. This may include the following, and this is not a complete list: inflammatory, religious, or supremacist content without a direct call to violence or a primary purpose of promoting hatred, So basically, if anybody gets religiously offended or thinks that you have a race, you don't have to call to violence or even be hateful. They'll just disable it. All right.
Bollocks. What a load of bollocks.
If I may, I just want to finish this and then we can discuss it. Conspiracy theories ascribing evil, corrupt, or malicious intent to individuals or groups based on certain attributes. So anybody who has a theory about an individual or a group with evidence is illegal. Videos denying that a well-documented violent event took place. So that means anybody who questions any violent event that's reported in the mainstream media, anybody who questions that, that's illegal. Content will remain available on YouTube, but the watch page will no longer have comments, suggested videos, or likes, and will be placed behind a warning message. These videos are also not eligible for ads. Having features disabled will not add a strike to your channel. So this is what happened to the Ollie Demigard videos that I did, and I've since removed all my Ollie Demigard videos, all of my Kurt Richard Haskell videos, all of my Cody Snoga's videos, because they were saying it's fake, it's a false flag, and that kind of thing. And I'm just not allowed to tell people the what people's honest opinions are, according to these new rules. So one last bit of this, and then we're done with these new rules. If one of your videos has features disabled, we will send an email to notify you. You can appeal the decision directly from the link or by following the appeals process. Now, the appeals process goes like this. Hey, can I appeal this? No. All right, and then that's it. All right, so yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The age of free speech and adult conversation on YouTube is over. It's over. Okay, it's not coming back, folks.
It isn't, is it? You're right. You've got right. They keep moving the goalposts. The goalposts move. Well, they're not even moving. The goalposts are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you know it's becoming more and more difficult to comply and have anything that's of any worth. Really, you can the stuff that they want is you putting a picture up of your dog or your cat or something like that. How can just tell us what's the name of your backup channel? You keep talking about your backup channel, but how do people find it? Somebody did ask in the chat room earlier on.
youtube.com/C, the letter C, /Vinny Eastwood. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And if you go to that channel and subscribe to it, and I'm asking people because I can't communicate to my own subscribers on my main channel. I'm being censored left, right, and center in all ways, shapes, and forms. So I don't have any choice, ladies and gentlemen, but to ask you to do all that work for me that I literally am unable to do right now because I've been censored, because I've been cancelled out. So if you're in the chat room right now, now's the opportunity to share this link around and to help us get some attention for this, and make sure you share that channel link around, because we're going to be doing updates and we're keeping people informed about this incident as long as we possibly can. Now, on that channel, there is a playlist of all of the videos that we made while we were in Christchurch this weekend, including witnesses and survivors, and just a bit of commentary for, telling people just what the context of this is. So one of those elements of context I wanted to actually explain to people is, just imagine for a moment, just bear with me, that you had friends or family who were brutally shot to death in some kind of attack, whether the government staged it or it was a genuine attack, irrelevant. Now, you're in full hardcore grief mode. Explain what that is. You can hardly breathe. You can barely walk. Your ability to talk is completely diminished. You cry every day uncontrollably. Any tiny little thing can set you off. Okay, so that's the position that you're in right now after an attack. If you're a victim family member, it doesn't matter. Then some people on the internet, 10,000 miles away, who have never been to New Zealand, who are not in New Zealand, who have talked to nobody from New Zealand about the incident, say that you and your family are crisis actors, and you're all liars, and it was a hoax, and nobody died. What would it do to somebody in such a state of shock and grief from a real incident? I believe it would traumatize them all over again. Okay, and that was the one thing that I wanted to tell people as well. You know, if you're commenting in chat rooms or on Facebook feeds or anything like that, saying it's a hoax, nobody died, it's all crisis actors and shit like that, dude, use your heart and your mind. Don't just jump to what your mind is telling you. Think about it with your heart. What is going on here? Is this a horrific, terrible thing that is completely irresponsible to say?
Let's be fair, Vinny. When we say false flag, we know these people are more than willing to kill people in a false flag to forward an agenda.
That's not what they're saying. They're not saying it's just a false flag. Exactly. They're saying it's a hoax and nobody died. So false flag is about basically saying that it's an old maritime term. So you wanted to start a war with a different country. So what you did is you put on a flag of that enemy country on your boat, and then you go and attack one of your own boats. And then you report in the media, oh my God, the enemy attacked our boat. Let's go get him. Let's go get it. That's a false flag. Now, does that mean a boat never got attacked? No. Does that mean people didn't die? No. What it means is government-sponsored terrorism. All terrorism, pretty much. I'm not going to maybe... is pretty much you cannot get away with any kind of terrorism attack without government sponsorship. Now, is this Vinny Eastwood saying this? No.
That's the truth.
This is former heads of CIA. This is former heads of Mossad. These are intelligence section chiefs, ladies and gentlemen, who ran the intelligence operations of the most major intelligentsia in the world saying this. And now we can't even say the words false flag in a video without that video getting taken down and the channel being flagged. So it seems to me that the intelligence agencies have taken over all of the social media. Okay, now this is what the Podesta visit was about. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Podesta the molester, he came here. And you also got to watch out when he comes. But the thing about Podesta the molester, the thing about Podesta the molester is that he was here in New Zealand to warn us of an upcoming cyber attack, which just so happened right before this attack, so that everybody was dopamine deficient, all right, more or less. They're like, oh, I don't have my dopamine hits from the digital thing, and then all of a sudden it comes back. And what's the only thing anybody's talking about? What's the only thing people are trying to watch? This incident, okay? It guaranteed a captive audience. I think that maybe the internet being taken down in advance of this attack, and a number of other people have corroborated this, was actually Facebook working with the perpetrators of this attack. All right, now that's unconfirmed at this point, but that's what a lot of people are saying, that Facebook knew about this, they aided it. And in so doing, they're now trying to cover up their involvement by removing the videos and everything like that. It's like the boy who cried wolf, you know. And what we're concerned about, or at least myself and fellow journalist Ben Vigil are really, really concerned about, is the fact that because we're trying to tell the truth, we're not trying to spread disinformation, and we have compassion and respect, we actually become the primary targets of the media, of the alternative media, of the audience of the mainstream media, and the audience of the alternative media. So we've pissed off 4 massively powerful groups of people by having compassion, by having respect, and reporting the facts. What does that tell you about our society?
It tells you that you're wrong, Vinny. It tells you that you're weird. It tells you that you're completely out of control. That's what society tells us when we stand up and go, hang on, I don't think this is quite right. That is what is happening. I've had people attack me over all the stuff I talk about. but there's no substance behind it, Vin. And that's what we have as a problem. I mean, you were talking about boots on the ground. I was speaking to boots on the ground to people who were in Syria while the BBC were telling me it was a civil war. You know, and the Syrian army, the people who were against the Syrian army, I'm going, but that's not what I'm seeing. This is completely wrong. Now, they couldn't hit the censorship like they are there, but when we look at Australia and New Zealand, I don't believe, from where I've looked at, I don't believe you've ever actually been natural countries whilst under the influence of the British Empire. You've been businesses, and that's what the problem is. Everything is commercialised. So all this law and legislation that's being passed, it's all overlapping completely on corporate and commercial law. This is where the danger is. I believe, I mean, I spoke to you, must have been 8 years ago when we were talking about New Zealand was like the money laundering capital of the world. Everything at one point was flowing in and out of. You know, there's some big stuff gone down in New Zealand. It's not just where Lord of the Rings was filmed. There's a lot of stuff happening. And I think it's imperative that people like yourself can get there and at least show something. But when you see this legislation closing in and closing in and closing in and tightening up on you, I can feel the claustrophobia that you must be feeling, Vinny.
Well, I mean, it's more the fact that the cops visited my home, you know?
Yeah.
So
they rang you the last time, didn't they? Weren't they a bit more bit nicer?
Well, here's what's problematic. Okay, so the Prime Minister did the most irresponsible thing you can possibly do in one of these incidents. They opened a emergency line for all the people. Okay, so yes. Why is that a bad idea, Vinny? Emergency line? It's obviously an emergency. No, it wasn't. The emergency was already over. The gunman was already caught. The people were already dead. What's the emergency line for? The emergency line is for the Stasi, the snitches, for your fellow man to turn against you, ladies and gentlemen. I saw this guy, Vinny Eastwood, talking about something on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to call the hotline and report it. This guy's a dangerous person. He's a white supremacist. He's got guns. I have detectives coming up to my home. And when the female detective showed my wife her ID badge, my wife noticed that the woman's hand was shaking like a leaf. They were terrified of us. You know, terrified. Because somebody called up and lied about what I'm saying, about what I'm doing. I've got people all over Facebook saying that I am a Nazi sympathizer, that I was going down to Christchurch to traumatize the people there further, to tell them it was to prove it was a hoax and all of this sort of shit. The people on major Facebook pages here in New Zealand, like Unite Union and Wake Up New Zealand page and things like that, trying to encourage people to go to my YouTube channel to report them, to go to my Facebook page to report me, to encourage people to unfriend me, to encourage people to ignore me, to tell people that I am not who I say I am, to tell people that I'm an agent, to tell people that I'm a white supremacist, you know, like all of these things, blatant defamation and lies from people who never watched a single video that I've ever made, or they just didn't watch the recent ones. They just looked at the title, made an assumption, had an emotional reaction, and then go out and in a fight or flight attack. And hey, they can fight me, but they can't run from me. So let's just attack Vinny. Let's just attack Vinny. He's telling the truth. He has compassion. He's got facts. He's got evidence. And he has a foothold in the United States alternative media, unlike anybody else in New Zealand. So let's prevent him from having any reach. Because if there's one thing the victims don't need right now, it's compassion and the truth about what happened to them to come out. Right, ladies and gentlemen? Is that your entire purpose, is it? To stop people from getting sympathy or getting their stories actually heard? You know, is that your agenda behind attacking me? Because that's what you're accomplishing.
Have they attacked you financially? Do you have a donate page, and has that been been attacked.
I could tell you, I could show you the stats. So I made $1,000 in super chats alone in the first 2 weeks of covering this incident on my main channel. That's now gone back, and that's like hundreds of dollars a day in super chats and all the donations coming in that enabled me to buy a phone that I was able to go down and do the live streams from there. That enabled me to buy a plane ticket for myself and Ben Vidgen, and I gave Ben Vidgen $500. He's still down in Christchurch. He's my man on the ground there at the moment. And the only reason why I have any of that is because I had my main YouTube channel to gather revenue, to be able to spend it on the resources that we need to get the truth out there. Ben had to get himself a new cell phone and a new laptop. He had to break his laptop in half because he had questionable material on there and he didn't want to get arrested when he goes to Wellington Airport. I told people about that immediately after he got off the phone with me. He was freaking out, and then New Zealanders donated like $500, $600 just like that, and he was able to get a new phone and a new laptop. Okay, so the only reason we're even able to do any of this at all is because of the extraordinary support that we're getting from all over the world, from people who do want to know the truth, who are sharing these videos, this kind of thing. And it's just at the same time we're very, very frightened, but we're also very, very humbled, because we've been doing this job. I've been doing this job maybe more than 10 years. And Ben's been doing it a lot longer than me. He's a professional journalist. He's an author, you know, that kind of thing. I'm just some douchebag on YouTube with an American talk radio show. And that's the support that we're getting has been so overwhelming that it's comparable to what happened actually at the mosques. You know, you go down to the mosques, you're knee deep in flowers and wreaths and things like that. People really cared. People really show compassion. And, you know, in a very tiny way, I'm getting that very same kind of support and compassion from people because of, you know, I'm trying to work as hard as I can to get this stuff out there, and people can see, or at least some people can see, that I am doing what I am doing. I'm not just talking about it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually getting the job done. Now, I think I said something very, very arrogant while I was down in Christchurch, but it's nonetheless true. The coverage that I alone have facilitated, you know, just the guests, the commentary, the witnesses, the survivors that we've interviewed and everything like that, has been the best and most comprehensive coverage that anybody in the world has done on this subject. And I'm not talking about like, oh, you could add them all up and then maybe I'm a little bit better. I'm talking about there's no even comparison. All right.
Well, the mainstream was the same narrative, Vinny. It didn't matter what station you watched it on. It was the same stuff, which we've seen so many times. You can look at 50 states from across America and they broadcast the same. You know, it's all the same dialogue and everything. So I fully understand the fact that you're there and you're covering this. I mean, the fact that people are donating because they want to get to some kind of truth, because they know they aren't getting the truth from where they thought they were always getting it from. And this is where it brings back to politics. How do they get this legislation already, and it's already passed within 10 days? You can't write that stuff without it being looked at, without it being voted on, and then being passed into legislation. We had it with the PNAC document before 9/11. It was already written the year before. We can see what's coming. It's the problem, reaction, solution that we've learned from. And it's the people who are now waking up. I mean, we've had obviously you've been busy down there, but we've had a bit of a fiasco called Brexit over here, where there was never any intention of us leaving Europe because it's impossible for the agenda. So they have to keep muddying the waters and throwing shit at people. And people say, well, let's vote for them. He'll do it. And you just can't get through to those kind of people if you're still voting. The thing is, down, like I said, New Zealand, they're a close shot, Vinny. Those people are coming now. That's only going to get progressively worse. And obviously you can see it because they've been to your house on a few occasions. So you can see this is progressively now stepping up. They're ramping up everywhere.
Yeah. So what happened is the first time it was two detectives that came up, and I'm a really charming bastard. So I shook their hands. Do you want a hug? No. Do you want a hug? No. And take him down to the man cave. And incidentally, you know why a man's got a man cave?
Go on.
The woman's got the house. Now,
normally.
So we took him down to the man cave and had a chat with them, you know, smiling and laughing and having a good old time, you know, that kind of thing. They didn't even get around to asking their questions, because I'd already answered all their questions before they'd even opened their mouths. I'm going down to Christchurch. I'm going to be showing compassion and respect. I'm going to be interviewing the victims and so on and so forth. So nobody who's got a brain in their body would argue with me or try to attack me or try to arrest me or anything like that once they know what my intentions actually were. And I believe that was the first time that they came round here. Now, because of this Jacinda Ardern set up hotline, many people reported me. Okay, so that means the cops had to come by many times, and these are cops who didn't know that I'd already been visited many times. So they send a new recruits, you know, and they're all coming around here, and none of them knew that I'd already been visited. All right, so each of them actually got progressively more and more embarrassed as more and more of them turned up. Now, that was 3 sets of cops in 3 days. First were the detectives, second was the sergeant, third was when the detective gave me a ring to ask me what time my flight was to Christchurch. Okay, and then the fourth one, the cops actually turned up while I was on the flight to Christchurch and asked my wife my whereabouts. And then the very next day, my wife went out to go see her friend and go brush the horses and stuff. And she came home, and our front gate was left open, unlatched. And she'd clearly locked it before she went. So we believe that maybe the cops have visited my house 4 times and rang me once inside of 1 week because of my coverage of this incident. Okay, so if anybody else in any media outlet in the world has a resume like I've got, has credibility like I've got, point them out, please, ladies and gentlemen. They don't freaking exist. If you're not watching Vinny Eastwood's coverage of the mosque massacre, you're not getting any information, okay? You're getting opinion from people who haven't been there, who aren't familiar with the incident, who don't have a decades of experience of reporting the media and the truth in this country, okay? It's a waste of your fucking time, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty much you can ignore everybody except me on this issue, and you would know more than everybody.
Yeah.
Quite a claim. It's a little bit like you with Bills of Exchange there, Webby. I know.
Hey,
people...
whoa. Now you've brought it up, mate. There's no claim there. The Bills of Exchange Act 1882. Full stop. There's no claim. That's global commerce. Go on, carry on.
Okay, then. There you go.
You might want to turn your light on there, brother. You're looking a bit dark.
I am a bit honoured.
Well, can you say that? Hang on a minute. Can you say that in New Zealand these days? You're looking a bit dark. Can you say that?
I don't know, honestly, ladies and gentlemen. And if we get censored in real time, folks, you know why. His light was off, and I commented on the darkness he was in, and people thought it was a racial slur. You know,
don't forget, Vinny, you're white. You are racist. You're white. You can only be racist if you're white.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing as well. So first of all, I want to define the parameters of this, because everybody's got their opinions and such and blah, 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 blah. But let's think about the deeper ramifications. Let's forget the video. Let's forget the victims. Let's forget the witnesses. Let's forget the evidence. Let's have a look at just the implications alone that have come and shooting off of that. So, first of all, record efficient internet censorship. Now, if we don't roll this back and roll it back immediately, folks, and complain to YouTube and force them to stop doing what they're doing, this is the future, ladies and gentlemen. You will never be able to talk anything about anything without the approval of the government. Okay? That's number one. Number two, they have already started gun confiscations in New Zealand. They're turning up at people's place at 2 o'clock in the morning and taking their guns off them. One boy who had a practice blank firing pistol has been executed by police during the raids.
Wow.
Okay, his father's very, very upset. Okay, this is real, ladies and gentlemen. This shit is real. They're talking about national sovereignty for New Zealand and Australia being weakened in regards to our gun legislation.
Sorry for jumping in there, Vinny. When did you see that step up with the police? I mean, I always tell a story. I got caught about 8 to 10-year-old playing with a 357 Magnum blank firing gun at 8:10 on a Sunday morning in my local street. And a cop who was on the beat approached me and said, "Oh, can I have a look at that? That's a nice gun. Where do you live?" He takes me into my mum's shop, who smiles at me as I walk in, and then she realised there's somebody stood behind me and says, "What's he done?" And he laughed and he put this 357 Magnum on my mum's shop counter and says, "I just don't think he should be playing outside with that." Now, fast forward 30 years, I would expect an 8 to 10-year-old child who's been caught or reported with that to be possibly shot. Now, you're saying that that's happened. Is there a time, would you say, Vinny, in the last 20 years where blank firers the police would just be nonchalant about and stuff like that? Have you seen that ramp up with the legislation?
No, it just happened instantly.
So it has all been laxed and then gone boom?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like that. Incidentally, right after the year that they introduce a whole bunch of draconian legislation, incidentally, it's a year after the United Nations published, and this is not open published, by the way. This is a secret publication on the United Nations website, specifically chronicling their idea for progressive gun confiscation. Okay, so they've got maybe like 6 stages that they've outlined. First stage is demonizing guns, and the last stage is taking the guns off of everybody who doesn't have them, and so that only police and military will have them. So there's 4 stages in between there where they gradually ramp it up, and a little bit of confiscation, a little bit of demonization, and it all meets in the middle. So essentially their entire goal here at the United Nations, which is the biggest anti-gun lobby in the world, is to take every single weapon off of people, and so that only the police and only the military will have weapons. And as Lenin said, political authority comes from the barrel of a gun. And so when no human beings who aren't in the power structure have guns, what do you think the chances are that any of those human beings will wind up becoming free under such a society where it's illegal to defend yourself? Okay, it's illegal to resist authority that has no justification to it. It's illegal, it's illegal, it's illegal. So basically, they're taking away people's rights, their freedoms in every way, shape, or form because one guy who wasn't even a New Zealander came over here and shot up a mosque, all right? And that's not counting the fact that every single witness and survivor that we've interviewed have corroborated that they think that there was more than one shooter. Now, why would that be the case, ladies and gentlemen? It's because, legally speaking, if there's only one guy involved, it's not a conspiracy, because a conspiracy technically needs one or more people involved to go and do harm against another group of people without that group of people knowing about it first. That's the definition of a conspiracy. So
everything else is a theory.
That's right. Well, so they arrested 4 people on the day, and one of them was a local Maori guy who got into his fatigues and took his weapon to his children's school because he wanted to protect the school from the alleged gunman that he heard about on the radio. Okay, brave guy. Police arrested him. The second person that got arrested was the alleged gunman himself, who was on the live stream, and the third and fourth gunman and gunwoman were arrested at the Linwood Mosque, which was a significant drive from the first mosque that was attacked, and all of the witnesses and survivors that I've spoken to said it would be almost impossible / ridiculous for somebody to be able to drive from one mosque to the other in the course of that 17-minute video, you know, that kind of thing, including all the shooting he did and what have you. Impossible. So there's second gunman, allegedly. The government's covering that up. There were drills on the day. There was a crisis conference about mock terrorism drills a couple of weeks before, and the legislation that they come out with immediately after this, almost within seconds, is all pro-New World Order, pro-UN, anti-freedom. Okay?
There's nothing
so if
new
anybody
under the
thinks
sun,
that
is there,
there is...
Vinny? There's
two
nothing
things.
new under the sun.
Yeah. So if you think that nobody died, you're wrong. If you think that there's no agenda behind this, you're wrong. Period.
Yeah. Listen, we normally take a break at this time and just play a quick record so everyone can have a comfort break and top up the drinks and stuff. Plenty of stuff for us to get into in the second hour. As you're listening to Raconteurs News, we've got Vinny Eastwood all the way. He's got up dead early for us this morning, all the way in New Zealand, and it's Tuesday morning for him as well. So we're talking to the future right here on Raconteurs News. I'm just going to play a quick record, and we'll be back after this one. It's from Heath. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. Studio. Okay, we'll be back very, very soon.
Okay, folks. Hope you enjoy the break.
I'm gonna have some fun with this one here. Woo-hoo! In the morning, when I wake up, all I want is marijuana. In the evening, when I'm thinking, all I want is marijuana. If you look in my eyes, you will see what I've done. Every minute, every hour of every day. But life is like a smoke. In the end, I'm gonna choke. So all I do is live my life from day to day. Oh my God, you know you better watch yourself because I know you're waiting on that one. Cause I'm telling you, concern, cause you know the one that I take over and you let me see you do the run. Run and the one that they clan and the one that done. Cause I know you cannot be me now, what you wanna do. Cause I'm about to break it down, me, cause that's all that, cause you know you cannot fade me now, that you wanna. You better back it down now, because I'm telling you, rock bar, bumba, connect that wonder. Because you know you like the way I put that pick up, cause I'm telling all your fools what I put up, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy. If you look in my eyes, you will see what I've done. Every minute, every hour of every day. But life is like a smoke. In the end, I'm gonna choke. So all I do is live my life from day to day. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me. Come on, baby girl, let's get it going on. I'ma hit the highway and do it my way. It ain't no game, girl, so I don't play games. I keep it up straight, right up in your face. So make your mind up, cause life is too short. I got the best on, boy, put your belt on. Stop acting all cool like Kanye West, boy. You be riding through the wire and the camera get on fire. You don't want that, no, I don't want that, no. This goes out to pimps and chicks, so slow. Hit the backseat when you're doing the licking, kissing, squeezing. Do the damn thing, man. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crash it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, roll it, roach it, smoke it, rent your ass it to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crash it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, roll should smoke Mary Joanna to me.
And welcome back to Raconteurs News on this Monday, the 1st of April. It's April Fool's Day, and we're nobody's fools tonight. We have been joined this evening from New Zealand and from the future, from tomorrow morning. We've got Vinny Eastwood with us. Vinny, how you doing, mate? Did you enjoy that? And I noticed were you talking to your audience whilst our Echo were playing?
I figured it out. Like, so the great thing about it is because we're simulcasting on my YouTube channel at the moment now, I'm able to mute your guys' audio input and just have it in my headphones here so that I can speak to my audience during the break with my microphone muted here. So it's a double platform whammy that we got there. And I was just telling people about how important it is to subscribe to this backup channel here and to tell as many people as they can about it, because otherwise, what was my old saying? You know, the old saying that if a man expresses his mind in a forest and no woman hears him, is he still wrong? And the other, but the other thing is, if an activist speaks the truth, but no journalist films it and uploads it, will anybody hear it? And the answer is fucking no. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do need to ask you a huge favor to share this YouTube channel and to share the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and to please support the broadcast in any way, shape you can. That could be just by liking, subscribing, clicking the bell. It could be by starting up an automatic payment into the Kiwi Bank or the Patreon, or using the PayPal buttons at the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. The more resources I have here, the more I can do. And I have done more within the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 2 months. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really busting my ass hard here. I'm tired and I'm exhausted, but I have to keep working, because name me one other alternative media person here in New Zealand.
I don't know. I think we've only ever had one other person on from New Zealand, and that was a lady, Rose Renton, I think her name was, but she was.
But is she a
journalist? I'll tell you, Vinny.
Rose Renton's an activist. Does she have a platform? No, she doesn't. Does she have a talk radio show? No, she doesn't. Does she have a massive Facebook apparatus and many pages? No, she doesn't. Is she admin of 73 groups on Facebook? No, she isn't. All right. So when I say I'm the only person in New Zealand reporting on the ground on this, I'm the only one with a platform of any size or scope at all. The only one with experience in New Zealand who is an actual journalist who's willing to cover the truth about all subjects, not just one that personally affects us. And that's no offense to Rose Renton whatsoever. I've tried to get her on the show. She hasn't bothered to get back to me, that kind of thing. So I can't give her any coverage, but fortunately she's had large quantities of coverage from the mainstream media here in New Zealand. So she doesn't need me.
All I was just saying is that I was the only person from New Zealand that we'd ever had on. And what's the mood like in New Zealand? You know, where you get like there's a mood within a nation at the moment. We've got a very angry United Kingdom for obvious reasons. What's the mood like in New Zealand? Is it and particularly Christchurch as well? Are there people in and around Christchurch who are asking questions, you know, perhaps just amongst communities and stuff like that? What sort of mood did you find down there?
Tense. Okay, so, but also emotional. So let me explain what I mean. Did an interview at a bar with a couple of guys there. They just turned out to be eyewitnesses and that kind of thing. So they came up to us at the bar and they're asking, "What are you guys doing here? Are you guys white supremacists or anything like that?" And I was like, "Oh, this could get violent really, really quickly." Big, strong men who have honor and discipline don't tolerate pieces of shit. All right, more or less, especially if it's their community that just got shot up. So we were putting ourselves at a big risk there at getting targeted, not because of what we're doing, but because of what people might mistakenly think we were there to do. You know, because we had Unite Union and we had Wake Up New Zealand and a number of other people on Facebook and YouTube telling people that we were neo-Nazis, that we were going down there to prove it was a hoax and to offend people and that kind of thing. We got reported to the police many, many times, this sort of thing, none of which had any validity. Nobody knew what the hell they were talking about. And that's the evidence I use when I say how high the tensions are here and how sensitive this issue is. Because somebody who wants to go down to Christchurch to show sensitivity and show respect is called a neo-Nazi white supremacist and asked to be deplatformed and called on by the police not less than 4 times in 3 or 4 days. Okay, so you betcha we were freaking freaked out going down there, man, and it's all tense. But once people actually had a chance to talk to us, once we told them that we're here for compassion and respect, once we told them that the American alternative media, or at least a lot of people within it, are saying it was a hoax and nobody died, and we're specifically down here to disprove that claim by talking to the victims, by talking to the people who actually knew people at the mosque, by talking to the people who actually drove past, by seeing bodies on the road, that kind of thing. We got hugs, man. And these were, you know, when you hug your mate and he's just lost his missus or something like that, and you're at his funeral and you can feel that pain coming off of him. It flows from his heart to yours. Mm-hmm. It was like that, bro. It was so fucking painful hugging these guys, man. Just give me a second. Okay. You feel that loss, you feel that grief, and people are on the videos now. I've had to block so many people. Just saying, oh, these guys are just crisis actors, or oh, that seems fake and everything like that. It's like, fuck. Dude, did you even watch the video? Did you even listen to what these people are saying? Okay? And on the other hand, you weren't there. You wouldn't feel it. And the other element I've got to recuse myself a little bit. Because just because somebody wasn't there and didn't interview somebody or whatever doesn't mean they know nothing and their expertise is worth bubkiss. All right, plenty of people. I'm sure their opinions on this thing are very, very good. But I'm not going to stand by and see my people get re-traumatized by people spreading either disinformation that they're not aware of, or if they're purposely spreading that disinformation. Because it's like, I'm getting aggressive and emotional over this whole incident too, but it's not because of some sort of emotional BS that the media has made me feel, just thinking, oh, I want to attack anybody who doesn't think what I think, and that sort of thing. I believe that's kind of what's happening at the moment, is to attack anybody who thinks. And I'm trying not to attack anyone, even the people that I disagree with at this point, because it's simply not the time yet. And by the end of this month, by the end of April, I think that might change after people have had a little bit of time to calm down, to emotionally absorb the shit that's been going on, so they've had some time to pore over the evidence. Now, what's deeply troubling about this, though, is we go up to the mosque and you have people inside there, and we have to convince them that we're trustworthy. Now, I don't know if anybody knows how to do this, okay? Go to somebody who's incredibly sensitive, in pain, and suspicious. You don't know them. They've never heard of you. Convince them that they can trust you and tell you all the intimate details of their pain and all the facts of the evidence that they've put in. Try doing that, ladies and gentlemen. It's not easy.
No.
I managed to do it because I'm so fucking good at my job. Okay. And the reason why I'm good at that is because of the fact that I'm so genuine and have been for 10 years that all you need to do is tell somebody the absolute truth. You tell somebody absolute truth, and they will often be so taken aback by your honesty that they will instinctually trust you. Okay, this is not a manipulation technique, ladies and gentlemen. This is about cutting through the bullshit. This is what you think. This is what I think, blah, 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 blah. What we think is irrelevant. Here is the truth. I'm here to help in any way that I can. If you don't want to do this interview, I will back away, and I will not pressure you into it. That is not what I'm here to do. You know, that kind of thing. And after that, the hostility goes down, and then you get these big hugs. You have people who you're not even interviewing just coming up and shaking your hand, just saying, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. That kind of thing.
How long were you there? How long were you in Christchurch?
Just 2 days.
Just a couple of. So I would imagine that once you've got the confidence of one member of the community, then that probably is going to spread. And
no, that's not how it works. So let me explain. We spent day one at the Linwood Mosque. This is the second mosque shooting where there was approximately 9 deaths, 14, I think. And we find out that this is not actually a mosque. It's what they call a masjid, which is slightly different. So how that differs really is one's a really big one and one's much smaller. So the Linwood Mosque much smaller, and they predominantly had Indian Muslims and all bunches of different denominations, that kind of thing. Whereas the main mosque across from Hagley Park was primarily a Saudi mosque. So that was a much larger one, and that's where the vast majority of the bodies and casualties really occurred to. And that's where we spent day two. We interviewed the president of that mosque. Before I managed to get on the flight, managed to get him on the camera before the end of the day. But unfortunately, of course, my new iPhone that my listeners purchased for me locked itself inextricably for no reason whatsoever, and then my code wouldn't work. And so the new iPhone security is thusly like this: if you accidentally lock your phone and can't remember the code, you have to delete everything on the phone and start again. And you go, what? Isn't there another option? No, there isn't. But what about if we... Nope. But how about if we... Nope. But what about the... Nope. That's it. Period. Full stop. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got an iPhone out there, it doesn't matter that you've got facial recognition on your iPhone. It says you have to put in the code before you give your facial recognition. What is that, to protect my data just in case somebody cuts my head off to hack into my freaking phone? So anyway, none of the coverage from the second day has been published yet, because I took it all on traditional cameras. And so instead of uploading it immediately and people being able to watch it immediately, just like we're doing this live stream now, it's going to take me days and weeks and months, which really pisses me off.
Yeah, Apple, I had an iPhone, and my missus had an iPhone, and she recently she upgraded to a Samsung one, and she didn't get on with it, so we swapped. And I wanted to try to get all my stuff, all the videos and everything, off the phone. So I've got the code I can get into the phone, but I could not get the videos off. It was you had to jump through hoops. Whereas with the Samsung one, yeah, all you got to do is you just pop it in. You can get a video off. So yeah, I'm with you on the iPhone. Perhaps you should have. You should have. Blah blah blah. Did you just put that in there, Webby? That question? Did you just put a question into the?
No, it's not a question. I was saying to Vinny earlier that I had an article that was talking about a mosque leader talking about Mossad, and I'm looking at the New Zealand Herald now, and the Embassy of Israel in Wellington has called out prominent mosque leader who blamed Mossad for the Christchurch attack. Ahmed Banji, chairman of the Mount Roskill Masjid e Umar, gave a speech at a rally for the victims of Auckland in Auckland's, I'm probably not pronouncing this right, Vinny, but Altea Square. In his speech, Banji said he suspected the gunman got his funding from Mossad and Zionist business. He's quoted as saying, "I stand here and say I have very, very strong suspicion that there's some group behind him. I'm not afraid to say I feel Mossad is behind this." He can be heard saying in video footage. Mossad and the Israeli embassy have obviously called him on it, but that's the 28th of March, so it's quite recent.
Yeah, but again, if he's saying, "Oh, it's my opinion," who gives a fuck what your opinion is? What evidence have you got? Okay. He traveled to Israel and he stayed there for 6 months. And he also went around to like a dozen other countries that had active war zones as well before coming here. So suspicion? Sure. Evidence? We don't have any, and it's illegal to look at it.
Exactly. That's the amazing aspect of it, isn't it? What about we've seen? Sorry, Vinny, hang on. We've seen we've seen pictures released over here, allegedly, of the gunman in police custody, which doesn't resemble the man who's in the videos. Have you seen any of that, or can you comment on any of that?
Specifically,
it just didn't look. It was completely a different guy who was being portrayed, but most of the mainstream media he's blurred out. The face is blurred out, but then they say this is him, and it's completely not him. And I don't know if that's a true picture or not. So I just wondered if you'd seen. No,
it's the same dude, but it's the guy from the first mosque. So Max Egan's gone over the video with his film background, and he says 100% real. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of what they call ex-CIA people out there. Believe me, there is no such thing as ex-CIA.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying about the video.
If I may, they're saying it's 100% fake. Now, that'd be confusing, that kind of thing. But the other element here is there a possibility that we're being played by internationalist interests who are backing this guy? Right, because all the witnesses, all the people that I interviewed when I was down there, none of them are completely satisfied with the government's official story. So, is there a possibility that there were foreign intelligence agents supporting him, behind him, or something of that nature? Possibly, but there's no evidence to really suggest it is absolutely concrete just at this point. But like I say, end of this month might be able to figure that out or not. So that was one of my first questions I asked. I see a terrorist attack right at the same time that Israel's bombing Gaza. Let's see if Israel might be involved in this attack that conveniently soaked up all the media coverage. And I looked, haven't found anything substantial yet.
What I was actually pointing at was the production of the guy in court. The face was blurred out, but there's pictures showing the guy without his face blurred out. The guy in that picture is not the guy who was at the first mosque attack. In my opinion, it doesn't look like him.
No, not true. So first of all, you've got the pictures that he took of himself from the video, and you got a look at his face on the original video. I watched that on day one, and then completely deleted it afterwards because I don't want to go to jail. And that's when they announced that you'll go to jail if you possess or watch this video, or share this video in any way, shape, or form, or comment on this video. It's like freaky stuff. And so the interesting part is not whether or not it's the same guy. It is. The interesting part is what they charged him with on that first day. The interesting part is what hand symbols he made on that first day. The interesting part is the allegations coming out that he actually belonged to Freemasonry in Australia, and then went to Israel, and then comes down here and does a 666 sign to the camera. And then when he gets charged, does he get charged with executing 40 Muslims from that mosque? No, he doesn't. He gets charged with one case of murder, and the woman was still alive. Okay? And that was the last I've ever heard of it. And it's gone down the memory hole. And nobody in the mainstream media is talking about the second and third shooters that attacked the Linwood Mosque, where I interviewed one of the survivors from, and you can see that on my channel as well there. The media is not talking about that anymore, just vanishing down the memory hole. So I think it's Patsy. It's Patsy time, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody is just this guy, it's this guy, it's this guy. Don't look into his background. Don't look into his past. Don't look into his military training or the fact that he was trying to get into the Australian police and then allegedly got rejected and all of these kind of things. These are crazy. These are suspicions that we can't really confirm. as yet, because, again, as I say, it's now illegal to investigate things in New Zealand. All right, punishable by up to 14 years in jail for being a journalist.
Yeah, it's like I say, New Zealand, Australia, we've got all these test beds for what they want globally. I mean, the UK's being sculpted into it, but we've had test beds around here as well. We've had Northern Ireland was a test bed for the financial collapse in 2008. We've got Scotland, who's been the test bed for named person schemes, where social services are going to elect people to belong to families that maybe not necessarily have any need of social services, but we're going to allocate you one anyway. This is all about normalisation for people. It's like I say, I see it getting ramped up in countries like yours, is because that test bed has been slowly but surely put on year by year by year by year to the point where it's gone boom, like you've just said. They've ramped it up. They've took that jump. It's like it's almost, I feel it's almost like they've gone too slowly, that everybody's completely missed all the changes that are coming, and they've gone that slowly. Everybody's been so happy with it, and then all of a sudden they've gone boom, like that, and it's gone. Everybody's gone, whoa, what just happened there? Something's happened here. What it is.
And what's beautiful about that is, because everybody's such in a state of shock and confusion, are they going to fight back? Are they going to resist? Are they going to uncover the truth? No, they're not, because they're going to get called a neo-Nazi if they try, or get their channel censored, or have the police come by their house 4 times in 4 days, just like me, ladies and gentlemen.
They've raised the stakes from every angle, all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, New Zealand has a lot of cows, and so that means we know all about raising stakes.
And that means you're probably the biggest cause of climate change, considering it's now cow methane. That's one of the causes.
Technically, the biggest cause of climate change is the enormous, furiously burning ball of gas in the sun that provides us with our global weather and all life.
Listen,
I would assume that's the main climate change cause. But no. But if you want to demonize everybody, anybody who eats, anybody who's productive, anybody who perhaps has money or education to resist a totalitarian New World Order agenda, blame those people's everyday activity for destroying the earth. And that way you can demonize those people, and they'll start committing suicide after Agenda 21 starts taking them out, and taking them off the land. So it's a beautiful thing.
People don't understand about the Agenda 21, how it's already in fruition now. It's already taking stuff over in the UK. People are just cottoning on that in this system, you're not allowed to own property. Only a man and woman can own property or land. And the corporatization of everything means they presume the jurisdiction of all commerce. They control commerce. They have jurisdiction over all commercial properties. And I know from the work I've done on council tax over here, all property is deemed commercial. Every single property is deemed commercial. And it has to be that way because everything is liable, because the liability always comes first, then comes the exemption. We've got in documentation here where I can show where property is exempt from this tax, and it's everything that is non-commercial. But when you're under a presumption of everything being this, you've got to rebut everything. Now, that is absolutely impossible with the legislation that these dickheads write, because it's full of bullshit, it's full of commerce, and it's full of wordsmiths. You've got Romley Stewart over in Australia, who's done so much work on the language aspects of this stuff. It's poetry, Vin. People think these people are really clever. It's not about being clever. If I control the information that you get, Vinny, I control what you believe. So you could drive to work in your toilet and shit in your car at home. That's how much influence that I could have on your information. When we've got an education system, and we've got to get ready for Webingo in the chat room, with the education system with bills of exchange, where I was taught, Vinny, to work hard and pay my bills. If I pay my gas bill in a debt-based economy, the national debt goes up because I promised to do something with it and do nothing. So the government must step in because I'm acting as a child. to take things off me. That is completely what we're taught, where I'm meant to say, give me that bill, let me sign it, bring the debt down, zero, no austerity. We are taught that. We're taught the banks lend money. You only need to start there. When we're looking at an atrocity like what has occurred in New Zealand, and again, I always say the false flag stuff, yes, there has been hoaxes, but they are more than willing to kill people to forward an agenda. When you start seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shooters popping up at different places, oh no, we won't look at that. We ignore that, and it's being attacked. Straight away, you're getting flack, Vinny. You know you're over the target.
I think so, but the question is, well, it's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a convergence theory is kind of like a shark feeding frenzy. You're bleeding, you're in the water, you're surrounded by thousands of different sharks. Are those sharks all working together? Or do they have their own agenda and just happen to share the same target? You know, that kind of thing. So when police come round to my house, do I immediately accuse them of being part of the Freemasons and New World Order agenda here to intimidate me? No, I don't, because the likelihood is they're just dudes who are doing their job and they have no idea about the broader context or implications of this. And in fact, one of the things that I explained to the detectives who came here was the Dunning-Kruger effect, because they said, oh, I know what kind of work you do, Vinny, and that kind of thing. I go, really? How many videos of mine have you watched? He goes, one. Okay. I've done over 5,000 videos over 10 years. So if you think you know what I'm doing based off of watching one video, I'll explain the Dunning-Kruger effect. So they got two groups of people. One group knew a hell of a lot about the subject that they were being asked questions about, and the other group knew nothing about the subject that they were being asked questions about. And the most interesting thing happened. They had a test for each of them that had a list of questions and also how highly did they rate their answer to be true, okay? How confident are you that you think this is going to be true? So the people who knew a lot about a subject thought they knew a lot more than they actually did. And the people who knew nothing thought they knew a lot more than they actually did as well. So it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of education or nothing. The chance that you actually are going to be accurately capable of judging your own perception on something that you know a lot about or know nothing about is just as wonky. Okay? We don't know what we don't know. The lesson therein is be humble. Assume that you don't know what you're talking about, that you don't know all the facts in the equation. Don't be overconfident in your answers. Don't attach yourself to a theory just because it sounds good to you. Question it. Try to prove whether or not it's true, okay? And when I say that, people think that the way to, get to the truth is to prove what everybody else is saying is wrong. No, you get to the truth by trying to prove yourself wrong. And it's only once you run out of options that you realize you were right.
All along, you were right all along. Vinny, listen, I want to ask you, I've got a little bit of a question in my head, and I wanted to ask you about the political system, the government in New Zealand. What's the general feeling of the government amongst the people? Is it a popular government? Are they able to get this legislation through very quickly because there is no viable alternative or something like that? And most importantly, was your Prime Minister carrying a concealed weapon the other day?
Still not sure about the authenticity of the Prime Minister's secret weapons and what have you. And I have it's hard to put your hand on it.
I beg your pardon.
The thing I'm trying to get at here, not to put too fine a point on it,
Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet.
There are red herrings and things that don't necessarily matter that can be easily used, whether or not they're true, to demonize a group of people or make them just look ridiculous and things like that. Now, let's say I'm of the opinion that there's a whole bunch of things that are basically inadmissible as evidence. So number one, the video itself, because it's illegal to watch it, analyze it, do anything, I consider it inadmissible as evidence. You can't use it, you can't really discuss it, and that's my job as a journalist, is to try and figure out the truth, but they've made it illegal for me to do my job. So the other element is, who's the Prime Minister working for? And I call it the Prime Minister because I've done a video called Jacinda Ardern Exposed in 7 minutes or less. Okay, and in that we tracked her progress from start to here we are today, and this was all made before she even got elected Prime Minister. So all that information in there is absolutely backed up. She was a Mormon, and then she got a Freemason scholarship, and then she went into PR working for Tony Blair. And then she was in England helping to cover up a Freemasonic sex abuse scandal. And then she came back here, got recruited by a couple of New Zealand members of parliament who also belong to globalist clubs like the Club de Madrid. That's Helen Clark, our former Prime Minister, currently at the UN. And also Parliamentarians for Global Action. That was from Phil Goff, who was her mentor, who is now the Mayor of Auckland. A Mayor of Auckland who received a $200,000 anonymous donation from a Chinese donor during one of his fundraisers. And you wonder, who's he running Auckland for the benefit of? And there's a lot of suspicions there around Chinese infiltration of New Zealand and that kind of thing. But that's a little bit off topic. Now, during the election, Jacinda Ardern was very, very clear. She said the words, absolutely yes, in reply to, should cannabis be able to be accessed by medical patients? Should it be legal for people who want to use it recreationally? Absolutely yes, she says. She gets elected, and then Rose Renton and a number of other green fairies, I'm sure you're familiar with them, get busted directly after the Prime Minister that says absolutely yes gets elected, right? They didn't arrest them during the election when it could have created bad press. They did it after the election when people's attention was elsewhere. That's kind of the person that you're dealing with here, a manipulative, dangerous, disingenuous, frickin' psycho, in my opinion. Now, do I have evidence to suggest this? Yes, and I could bring you in psychologists. In fact, I'm getting Professor Ed Dutton on from Finland tomorrow morning. Around about this time tomorrow morning, Professor Ed Dutton from a prestigious university in Finland has decided to join me on the show to actually discuss what he thinks about Jacinda's psychological makeup and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll be getting into that there. But for the long and short of it, ladies and gentlemen, just search Jacinda Ardern exposed in 7 minutes or less and watch that video. Now, I'll warn you.
I'm not sure if I want to see her exposed, mate.
Well, it's not that kind of exposure. Now, because we only did the stuff that we could prove, all right? And the stuff that we could prove was so freaking suspicious and scary that it's just ridiculous. So there's nothing that's contestable in that video. So you have to sit there and go, whoa, 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 and you keep doing that for like a whole 7 minutes, you know, again and again and again. Boom, 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 boom. It doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, what you think about somebody. If you've got their track record, you don't have to believe a thing they say because their track record speaks for them.
Yeah, of course. Listen, we've got a question from the chat room from Misha in the chat room. In fact, I really should mention the chat room. Good evening to everyone who's in the chat room tonight. Cardin is in there, obviously making sure everybody's behaving themselves. Super Leeds is in there as well. Misha, Cecil, good evening to you, Cecil. Andy Young's in there as well. I don't know who he is. He just seems to have pops up every now and again. Yeah, so hello to everyone in the chat room. But we got a question from the chat room from Misha, and she said Max Egan mentioned that Vinny's sister had friends that died at the mosque shooting. Is this true?
Oh, Max actually gave me a call just after he did that show. Now, he misinterpreted what I said. I said on my show, my sister is down there, that kind of thing, and that people died. And he misinterpreted as that me saying that my sister knows people who died, which is just not the case. And he rang me directly after that show to clarify that, and I told him, no, bro, I didn't say that. And he goes, oh shit, sorry, man, because as I say, this incident has got people's blood up, and they're excited, and they're rushing to get things out. So everybody just needs to calm down. Just and I did go to see my sister when I was down in Christchurch, and we had a coffee with her and that kind of thing. And one of these schools just down the road from her, 1,700 students. They had 9 children and parents of children that were at that school who are dead now. And they actually let the entire school out to go to the memorial. 1,700 kids walking across walking along the street, that kind of thing, to go to the memorial to grieve for their parents dying, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a huge thing. It's massively affected the community down there. But yeah, no, my sister didn't know anybody who died.
Well, that's a blessing anyway. So. Small blessings, obviously. The people that did die, then we do. We hope that. Well, I don't even know what to say. That's
another thing. I got to actually put this up, because when I came on American radio for the first time to discuss this was with Clyde Lewis on Ground Zero, and he said to me, like, how are you feeling, Vinny, and everything like that. And here's the thing. We are in a trepidatious emotional state. And what that means is we're afraid to have real emotions. And the first thing I said to him was, there are people in this world who have disingenuous emotional profiles, who are trying to look and virtue signal like they care, like they're grieving with those people who died, and that kind of thing, in order to make themselves look good, in order to get more attention, in order to do whatever. I'm not one of those people. When I first watched the video, I had zero emotional reaction. And many people throughout this country and around the world also watching that video had zero emotional reaction. And just because I had no emotional reaction to that video, that in itself gave me an emotional reaction. Is there something wrong with me? What is going on here? And so part of the reason why I wanted to go down to Christchurch is not only because one of my listeners said, here's $1,000, go down to Christchurch. I really need you to. I was really afraid to go down there. And it turns out with good reason, getting cops visit you 4 times. But when you go down there and you actually talk to the survivors and the eyewitnesses and stuff like that who live in those neighborhoods, lived in there for 20 years, and you can feel that what they went through, or their trauma, was absolutely real. And you can tell from how they're talking and the emotional inflections in their voice that they're not making shit up here. This is totally real. And I'm just... I want to make people, aware that if you haven't got an emotional attachment to this, don't be afraid. Okay. I had to go down there to hug these people, to speak with them in person before I had any emotional response to this incident whatsoever. I had to be there. That's the reason why I wanted to go there, because I wanted an emotional response. I wanted to feel human again. Watching the videos didn't make me feel human. It made me feel like I was empty, a vessel, a shell, a nothing. But after I came back, after being down there and hugging these people and hearing their stories and hearing their voices, that kind of thing, it's tough, bro. It's really, really tough. And I've been given but one grain of sand on a beach of the grief that these people are feeling right now. So they've got such incredible strength, and I think that's because the response from not only people all over New Zealand, but people all over the world are traveling to Christchurch to lay down flowers and give their condolences and things like that. So when we were interviewing the president of the mosque that had the 40 casualties, I told him this story about how I was walking home one day and there was this dude there, and he'd been giving out free Dickies clothing, the good workwear, stuff like that. You know, free clothing. Come on, guys, we've got a big box, that kind of thing. Couple of gangsters robbed his box off of him. They took his last $10 for the bus home, and they took his joint, all he had. You know, and he was, and I met him after this had happened. He told me a bit, and I go, okay. I looked in my wallet. I had a joint, and I had $10, and I gave it to him. All right. Now, what we're talking about there, ladies and gentlemen, is your faith in humanity. When one person comes up to you, they can easily destroy your faith in humanity right there and then by doing something horrific to you that you wouldn't expect. But then, right then, somebody comes up to you and can restore your faith in humanity just like that, just as easily. Now, the same thing, I believe, has happened in Christchurch here, where the faith in humanity just disappeared for the Islamic community down there. And the next day, when there were metric tons of flowers and letters and love coming from the community, I believe that restored their humanity again, and they're coping so much better now than I would have even imagined. You know,
isn't that what this is designed to do, though, Vin? Is it not what it's designed to do, Vinny? Is to raise that, lower it, raise that, lower it, raise it, lower it. It's that constant thing, what you were talking about, where people are going, what the fuck's just going on here? What's going on? Why is that? What? There's all these questions, and it's up and down. It's all designed to
that's
do
confusion.
This.
That's confusion. But what's not confusing is that these people have suffered shock and loss and grief. And what's not confusing is that the rest of the country have come out to show them support. Those two things, there's no equivocation.
What about the hijab thing? What about the hijab thing? Because there are Muslim women who are coming out and saying, please stop doing this. You know, stop putting the hijab on as because it's people. I know Muslims. I know Muslim people who've said, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's almost mocking. That's how they felt. Yes, that's how they felt. Yes, and I feel that's part of the agenda. I feel that's part of the agenda.
Now, Jacinda Ardern wearing the hijab, I totally agree with you. It's part of an agenda, just a virtue signal so that everybody will go like, oh, isn't she a wonderful leader? She's got so much compassion for us. No, she's a psychopath, and she's playing you so that you'll trust her so she can get away with shit she ordinarily wouldn't be able to. Right? That may sound cold, that may sound harsh, but ladies and gentlemen, I know who and what she is and who she's working for. And if you don't know that yet, watch the video, Jacinda Ardern exposed in 7 minutes or less, and you will no longer have any equivocations about it. And that's why we made that video before she even got elected, because we saw what a goddamn huge threat this lady was to New Zealand's sovereignty. Now, is that to say that the opposite party or something like that would have been so much better? No, that's why we did a video about them too.
Just a question, Ben. Just a question. Did she come out of nowhere? Did she come out of nowhere?
Yes and no. Okay, what I mean by that is her father was a 40-year police officer, okay, here in New Zealand. He got appointed to be Niue, a small Pacific Island nation north of New Zealand's High Commissioner. So she comes from power. She comes from political influence. And she was given a Freemason scholarship in order to go to university. But when she came back and she became part of the Labour Party, that's when globalists like members of the Club de Madrid, Helen Clark, and members of Parliamentarians for Global Action, Phil Goff, recruited her. And then she shot up the party list, like massively, like never seen anything happen that fast before. And then a leadership coup happened just before the most recent election, where Andrew Little, who is now the Justice Minister, was taken out of the top spot, and it was given to Jacinda, just like that. Okay, so has she earned what she has? maybe, but it's more just the fact that she's been groomed from the start and she's there to do a job, not for the people of New Zealand, but against them.
I would definitely concur with that, because when you were talking about Labour, Andy Burnham, he's now
House.
Mayor of Manchester. It's not house. You've not got house, mate. Bollocks, you've not got house. Not even Webbingo. But he is now Mayor of Manchester. He was my local MP. His personal assistant kept me away from him for 4 years, Vinny. He would not let me speak to him because he was Shadow Health Secretary. And I wanted to ask him, how do you feel about elderly in your constituency choosing between heating or eating when they're not liable to pay for gas, water, or electric in this debt-based economy? Funnily enough, he didn't want to talk to me. Shadow Health Secretary at the time.
Listen, Vinny, we've got another question from the chat room, and this is from New Being, and somebody's posted that you should answer. Sorry, I should ask this because she's Swedish. So I don't know what relevance that has, but and I don't want you to say anything that might get you into any bother. But New Being asks, question for Vinny. From your experience and investigation so far, what is your opinion on what really happened in Christchurch? Now, I just want to tag a little thing on to the end of that as well, because there's something that's puzzling me. You talked about earlier on that there was a crisis actor convention in Christchurch around about...
No. Not a crisis actor convention, a crisis staging convention.
Right, okay. Fair enough.
It cost $2,000 per ticket to get into this, and they had 120 anti-terrorism experts from around the world, experts in cybersecurity, terrorism, and any number of related fields for this massive conference that took place on the 6th of March, less than 2 weeks before this incident happened, and that the incident happened during Armed Offenders Squad drills. That's the New Zealand SWAT team, and not just Armed Offenders Squad drills, but New Zealand Special Air Services, the SAS, our Special Forces sniper drills at the time of the shootings as well. Now, for those of you who may have studied 9/11 from back in the day, you may recall that there were lots and lots of drills on the day of 9/11. Oh, really? Is there something? But I thought that was just a drill. Oh, it might be. So confusion. Okay. So that way you can get away with your operations if there is any intelligence operation going on, if you've got a number of drills to cover it. Because in the time it takes to figure out whether or not the drill is still a drill or if it's gone live, the perpetrators will be able to commit the attack and then get away from the incident before emergency services have even a chance to respond or get to the bottom of what's even going on at the time. So essentially, it's just confusion promotion to cover an operation, more or less. So I think it might have been a government-sponsored operation, and they wanted to murder a lot of people in the New Zealand Islamic community in order to turn people against each other. Accuse every white person of racism, or saying you've got no empathy for them, or whatever. And indeed, it's worked a treat. The New Zealand public has turned against me chronically, and I'm the only person who's put out unedited interviews of the survivors and the witnesses. Okay? And Vinny Eastwood deserves to be deplatformed. Vinny Eastwood deserves to have the cops come to his place because he's interviewing the witnesses, hugging them, caring about them, and listening to what they've got to say. What an evil bastard! So if people are concerned that there might be something dodgy going on here, but don't be concerned. It's confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. There's dodgy stuff going on here. Exactly what it is, we don't know because it's illegal to find out.
Yeah, it's crazy times we're living in, Vinny. It really is. It's just we have this every week, and more and more craziness and stupidity happens, and the more, you know, it's more shocking week by week by week, and yet we just keep getting it. It's just like, someone let me off, please, please. You know, put me. Oh God, just.
And while we're at this point in the show as well, we're nearly at the end of the second hour. I do want to remind people that are in the chat room who are watching this live on my YouTube channel now or anywhere to please subscribe and please hit that bell notification. And the reason for that is, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but my main channel with 40,000 subscribers has been disabled. I can't live stream from it. I can't upload videos to it, and I can't even leave comments on it to tell people that I've been censored. So this channel that we're live streaming on right now is youtube.com/C/Vinny Eastwood. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And I do want to encourage you not only to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications and that kind of thing, but I need you to tell everybody you can about this new YouTube channel, because I cannot tell anybody, ladies and gentlemen. They've hamstrung me. It's like they've cut off my hands, kind of thing. I'm completely unable to help myself in this particular situation. The only person who can help me to get enough subscribers to this channel so that anybody will even bother watching these live streams of this coverage in Christchurch is you, ladies and gentlemen. It's all down to you. Do you think people deserve to hear the truth about Christchurch? If you do, get them to subscribe to this backup channel that this video is on right here, right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's the best advice I can give you.
And that's important as well, everybody. I'd encourage people to go along and subscribe, like you say, and get the notifications when they come up. Do it on our channel. Do it on you know, just be where you get your information from is key to knowing what is happening. And Vinny is one of the, like he says, he's the only person really who's there on the ground. He's been there. He's felt the atmosphere and the ambience, and he's felt the pain of the people that he's met and he's interviewed as well. So yeah, go and subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to all of us. Let's all be nice to each other. Be excellent to each other. That's what we should.
We're all in it together, aren't we? We're all in it together.
Of course we are.
That's another thing. I just want to actually I just want to tell you guys how grateful I am for actually having me on. I mean, I know we organized this before I even went down to Christchurch and that kind of thing, but again, getting people to subscribe to my channel and watch the live streams and things like that, primarily it's going to be other people's shows that I'm going on that is going to be able to let people know that I have been censored, because anybody who's going to my channel now or has been following me in the past, they know nothing right now. They think I've just gone silent.
It's what we're trying to do, Vinny. We're in touch with a lot of platforms at the minute, and you know, the mediocre to small platforms like us, but we're making connections all over the country and then all around the world. It's about people talking to each other and exchanging information. I've been criticised for being told that I promote something. No, I class myself as an aggregator of information. I'm looking at some information, right? I've got an opinion on that. If I pass that on and somebody objects to what I've passed on, there's no difference to me leaving a newspaper on a bus as I get off and somebody disagrees with an article in the newspaper and gets off the bus at the same stop and comes and remonstrates with me. This is what it's about, giving people information. Each and every man and woman must discern them for themselves, because if you're following Vinny Eastwood, or you're following Raconteurs News, or you're following something, you're going to be at a disadvantage. You've got to look at everything. But the fact is, it comes down to, what are people doing? Vinny, are you able in whatever way to go there physically and film and take and interview? Yes, you've been able to do that. That is only because the will of good people who are saying, there's something fucked up here. There's something not right. We've got to look out at everywhere. And like I said, agree. Then you gave me a platform for my information that nobody wanted to know about 8 years ago. I've now been stopped at conferences where I've given talks where people have waited half an hour to talk to me and said they've travelled 4 hours to come and listen to me. They've listened to me rabbiting on at them in the car on the way down there, and they look me in the face and say, "You saved my life because of what you did on a video." That is mind-blowing. Now, I can't go to victims at a shooting like that and feel that, but that is exactly the same when somebody looks you in the eye, and when you're fighting for your own life, fighting to stay alive yourself, and somebody says, "You saved my life." I have no idea how to accept that or anything. It's just something that people, if people are left alone, Vinny, I find that people come together and help. If they're left alone, the trouble is we've got far too much meddling going on.
Yeah. And so I just want to say also to the listeners, and maybe even you guys yourself, if you know any other talk radio show hosts or people who've got shows on YouTube or anything like that, please message them and just say, go interview Vinny Eastwood if you can, please. He's got the information. He's live from New Zealand, you know, whatever you can, ladies and gentlemen, in order to get me on as many international shows as possible right now is basically the priority, because the narrative is being constructed, and it's only me, more or less, myself and Ben Vidgen, who are on the ground, who are trying to really give people the truth that they don't want to hear. And because I don't know any other people who would even really want to hear about this, I know that you listeners spend a lot of time not only listening to my show, but the shows of many other people. So whoever your favorite show host is, send them a message, ask them to interview Vinny Eastwood, because he's been censored and he's got the truth, and that's the best way you can interview somebody.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been a brilliant 2 hours speaking to you, Vinny, and thanks for getting up early for us. I know a 7 a.m. start for you, but I don't know if you can see out of a window where you are, but what sort of day is it tomorrow? Because I want to know what my wardrobe should be.
Give us a second, bro. 1 second.
Go on then. There you go. Listen, we'll be.
It looks like shit.
Oh, yes. I'll stop in bed tomorrow then.
Hang on, is it still there? Though? Was the world still there, Vinny, when you look? Was it all still there tomorrow?
Well, just everybody says that everybody complains about the weather in Auckland, and then it changes. So,
man-made or not, I mean, the thing is, you manifested that reality. It might not be the same as me or Jason's. I mean, he lives in a foreign country in the same land as me.
Well, yeah, I think we can agree to disagree on that one, Webby. Listen, everybody, thanks very much for listening. We've gone about 5 minutes over, but we were a little bit late, so we owed you a little bit of time, and we've paid you back with a little bit of interest as well, which will not please Webby, because he doesn't believe in usury. Anyway, so I'll be back tomorrow night. No, Webby tomorrow. You're not on tomorrow, are you, Webby?
No, it's not looking that way, Paul.
Right, okay. So no, it's just me tomorrow night, and I'll be speaking with Anne-Marie Carey. We'll be talking about people who shoot young girls in the head, allegedly. We don't know whether it's particularly accurate in any way, shape or form, but we'll be talking to Anne-Marie Carey. I'll be talking to Anne-Marie Carey tomorrow night, so join us for that. Thank you very much to Vinny Eastwood all the way over there in the future, and to Webby, my co-host. We'll speak very soon. See you later, everybody. Tomorrow a bit. Bye.